Unexpected proposition. Sophia Reeves balanced 3 coffee cups in a cardboard tray while scrolling through emails on her phone. Monday mornings at Horizon Technologies always felt like running a triathlon after a restless night. As executive assistant to Vincent Warner, she had mastered the art of anticipating needs before they arose and solving problems before they exploded. Vincent's office door was ajar when she arrived, revealing him standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Seattle skyline. Even from behind, she could read the tension in his shoulders, the slight hunch that appeared only when quarterly reports were due or when the board was being particularly difficult. Your usual black coffee, the financial projections you requested, and a reminder that the Parker meeting starts in 20 minutes, Sophia announced, placing his coffee on the glass desk. Vincent turned, his expression uncharacteristically uncertain. At 42, he carried the gravitas of someone who had built a tech empire from nothing, yet retained a youthful intensity that occasionally caught Sophia off guard. Today was one of those days. Something was clearly weighing on him beyond normal business concerns. "Cancel Parker," he said, taking the coffee without making eye contact, "and clear my schedule for the rest of the week." Sophia's fingers hovered over her tablet. "The entire week? The board presentation is on Thursday and you've been preparing for postpone it." Vincent took a deep breath. The Fujimoto partnership takes priority. Their representatives are flying in tomorrow for the Cascade Summit. The Cascade Summit. Sophia mentally shuffled through her knowledge database. The exclusive 3-day retreat for tech innovators and investors at the renowned Whispering Pines Lodge. She'd coordinated Vincent's registration weeks ago but hadn't scheduled any specific meetings. "I wasn't aware the Fujimotos would be attending," she said carefully, already calculating what needed to be rearranged. "It was confirmed yesterday." Vincent finally looked at her, his deep-set gray eyes harboring something she couldn't quite place. "Their CEO explicitly requested my presence. This could be the partnership that finally pushes Horizon into the Asian market." Sophia nodded, making notes. "I'll prepare a comprehensive brief on their recent acquisitions and arrange transportation. There's something else." Vincent set down his coffee untouched. "The Cascade Summit has a particular tradition. It's designed as a couples retreat. Team-building exercises, partner activities. The Fujimotos are traditional. They value family connections in business relationships." Sophia's fingers stilled on her tablet. "Should I reach out to your sister? Perhaps she could. I need someone who understands the business implications, the technical details." Vincent ran a hand through his dark hair, streaked prematurely with silver at the temples. "I need you to accompany me, Sophia, as my fiancée." The words hung in the air between them. 5 years of professional boundaries stretched thin in an instant. "Your fiancé," Sophia repeated, her voice impressively neutral despite the sudden tightness in her chest. "It's purely professional," Vincent added quickly. "The Fujimotos respect family enterprises. They're hesitant to partner with someone they perceive as unstable or uncommitted." Sophia set her tablet down. "And you believe deceiving potential business partners is the best approach?" "I believe securing this partnership is essential for the company's future, for all 300 employees depending on us." Vincent's voice softened slightly. "I wouldn't ask if there were any other option." Sophia thought of her small apartment, the student loans still looming despite her generous salary, the promotion she'd been working toward. 5 years of building professional credibility. 5 years of keeping a careful distance from the man whose life she helped manage. "The summit begins tomorrow," she said, mind racing through practical concerns. "I would need appropriate attire, a cover story. Everything will be arranged, whatever you need." Relief flickered across Vincent's face. "We'll need to be convincing, but discreet. Just enough to satisfy traditional expectations." Sophia straightened her posture, slipping back into the efficient assistant role that felt safer than this undefined territory. "I'll need to brief your driver, coordinate with security, and prepare talking points about our relationship." Vincent nodded, turning back to the window. "Thank you, Sophia." I know this is unorthodox. As she headed toward the door, his voice stopped her. One more thing, Vincent said quietly. The Fujimotos gave me an engagement gift already. We'll need to wear these. He opened his desk drawer and withdrew a small velvet box. Inside lay 2 platinum bands, elegantly simple, yet unmistakably expensive. Sophia stared at the rings, a strange vertigo washing over her. For 5 years she had maintained perfect professionalism, ignoring occasional whispers about her dedication to her demanding boss. Now she would step into the very role office gossip had always assigned her. Consider it a performance review. Vincent attempted a rare joke, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Let's hope I pass, Sophia replied, carefully taking the smaller ring and slipping it into her pocket, where it felt impossibly heavy for such a small object. As she closed his office door behind her, Sophia wondered what exactly she had just agreed to, and why, despite all her professional caution, some small part of her had leapt at the chance to step into a different life, even if just for pretend. Beneath the facade, the Whispering Pines Lodge emerged from the evergreens like something from a dream, all natural timber and glass, reflecting the surrounding forest and distant mountain peaks. Sophia gazed through the car window, mentally rehearsing the elaborate backstory she and Vincent had constructed during the 2-hour drive from Seattle. We met through mutual friends 3 years ago, she recited quietly. You proposed on New Year's Eve at the observation deck of the Space Needle. We're planning a small ceremony next spring. Vincent nodded, his attention seemingly focused on his phone. The rings were my grandmother's. Your grandmother died when you were 12, Sophia corrected gently. These would have been your mother's family heirlooms. Vincent looked up, a flash of surprise crossing his features. You remember that? It's my job to remember details, Sophia replied, turning back to the window. Right. Vincent pocketed his phone. Of course. As their car pulled up to the entrance, Sophia noticed several other couples arriving, all exuding the particular confidence of the extraordinarily wealthy. She smoothed her navy silk blouse, grateful she'd splurged on a few key wardrobe pieces over the years. Ready? Vincent asked, his hand hovering near her lower back as they approached the entrance. Sophia gave a small nod, slipping into character as they were greeted by the summit hosts. She had attended countless corporate events with Vincent, but never like this. Never with his hand resting lightly on her waist. Never with his voice softening when he introduced her as my fiancée Sophia. The lobby buzzed with conversation as tech moguls and investors mingled over welcome cocktails. Sophia scanned the room, quickly identifying Hideki Fujimoto and his wife Emiko in conversation with another couple. There they are, she murmured, subtly directing Vincent with a light touch to his arm. Before they could approach, a booming voice called out, Warner, you old ghost, finally emerging from your coding cave. Damon Reeves, CEO of a rival tech firm, approached with a champagne, flute in hand. His smile was friendly, but his eyes were calculating as they darted between Vincent and Sophia. And who is this lovely creature? Damon asked, his gaze lingering on Sophia's hand, where the platinum ring caught the light. This is Sophia, my fiancée, Vincent said, his arm sliding more firmly around her waist. Sophia, this is Damon Reeves. A pleasure, Sophia said, extending her hand with practiced poise. Vincent speaks highly of your innovations in quantum computing. Damon's eyebrows lifted. Does he now? That's not what his legal team said during our patent dispute last year. His laugh was sharp. I'm surprised, Warner. The office rumor was that you were married to your company. People change, Vincent replied evenly. So they do. Damon's smile didn't reach his eyes. Well, I look forward to getting to know the woman who tamed the robot. Perhaps during tomorrow's couple's hike. After Damon moved on, Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He's suspicious. Damon is always suspicious, Vincent murmured. It's why he's successful. They made their way through the crowd, Vincent's hand never leaving the small of her back. The gesture was proprietary in a way that should have bothered her professional sensibilities, but instead sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. When they finally approached the Fujimotos, Vincent transformed. The reserved, often brusque, CEO softened, his smile reaching his eyes as he bowed slightly in greeting. "Fujimoto-san, what an honor to meet you and your wife in person after our many virtual conversations," he said. The older Japanese businessman returned the bow. "Warner-san, the pleasure is ours. And this must be your bride-to-be." "Yes, this is Sophia," Vincent said, his voice carrying a warmth Sophia had rarely heard. "The most patient woman in Seattle for putting up with my work schedule." Emiko Fujimoto smiled knowingly. "I understand completely. These men and their empires." She reached for Sophia's hand. "Come, let us leave them to discuss business for a moment. I would love to hear how you two met." As Sophia was led away, she glanced back at Vincent, who gave her an encouraging nod. She had expected to be window dressing, but now realized she would be navigating her own diplomatic mission with Emiko. Over the next hour, Sophia fielded questions about her relationship with Vincent, weaving truth and fiction with the skill of a seasoned storyteller. Yes, Vincent worked too much. No, they hadn't set a specific wedding date. Yes, they hoped for children someday. Each lie felt more dangerous than the last. By dinner, Sophia had charmed Emiko completely, and the two couples were seated together. Vincent's hand occasionally found hers beneath the table, a gesture that appeared affectionate to observers but served as silent communication between them. A squeeze when she said something particularly clever, a brief touch when he needed her to elaborate on a business point. As dessert was served, Hideki raised his glass. To new partnerships, in business, and in life. The evening concluded with a fireside gathering, where couples nestled together on plush sofas, drinks in hand as they listened to a renowned climate scientist discuss sustainable tech initiatives. Vincent's arm draped casually around Sophia's shoulders, his fingers absently tracing patterns on her silk sleeve. Later, as they entered their shared suite, a beautiful space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the moonlit forest, the reality of their situation crystallized. "There's only one bed," Sophia stated the obvious, standing awkwardly in the center of the room. "I'll take the sofa," Vincent said immediately, loosening his tie. "You should get some rest. Tomorrow's schedule is packed with activities." Sophia nodded, gathering her toiletries and disappearing into the bathroom. When she emerged in silk pajamas, Vincent had already made up the sofa with extra blankets and was typing on his laptop, his back to her. "Vincent," she said softly, causing him to turn. "Thank you for not making this more awkward than it needs to be." Something flickered in his expression. Vulnerability, perhaps, before his professional mask slipped back into place. "We make a good team, Sophia. Always have." As Sophia lay in the king-sized bed, listening to the occasional tap of Vincent's keyboard in the darkness, she pondered the strange intimacy of their situation. She had spent 5 years learning every detail of Vincent Warner's professional life, his preferences, his habits, his business strategies. Yet today, playing the role of his romantic partner, she'd glimpsed a side of him she'd never seen before. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed genuinely, the protective way he'd guided her through crowds, the surprising gentleness in his voice when he introduced her to others. In the moonlight filtering through the window, Sophia twisted the platinum band on her finger. Tomorrow would bring a new set of challenges, more deceptions, more pretending. But as sleep finally claimed her, one unsettling thought remained. Some parts of today hadn't felt like pretending at all. Blurring boundaries. Morning light filtered through the forest canopy, casting dappled shadows across the hiking trail. Sophia walked beside Vincent, their fingers loosely intertwined as they followed the guide leading the couple's hike. They were third in line, close enough to hear the Fujimoto's conversation ahead but far enough from the others to speak privately. "You're quiet this morning," Vincent observed, his voice low enough for only her to hear. Sophia adjusted her sunglasses. "I'm focused on maintaining our cover. Emiko asked about our first date last night. I told her you took me sailing on Lake Washington." "I've never been sailing in my life," Vincent remarked with a raised eyebrow. I know. I said you were terrible at it and nearly capsized us. A small smile played at the corner of her mouth. It made you seem endearingly human. Vincent's laugh was unexpected, a genuine sound she'd rarely heard in the office. Clever, though I'm not sure how I feel about my fictional incompetence. Even tech geniuses need flaws, Vincent. It makes you relatable. Sophia glanced ahead to where Hideki and Emiko walked hand in hand. The Fujimotos clearly value authenticity in their partnerships, business and personal. Vincent's expression sobered. Is that your professional assessment? It is, Sophia affirmed, noticing how his thumb absently traced circles on her palm. As they walked, the gesture seemed unconscious but felt jarringly intimate. The trail widened as they reached a lookout point, and the group paused to admire the panoramic view of the valley below. Vincent released her hand to retrieve water bottles from his backpack, and Sophia felt a peculiar sense of loss at the broken contact. Beautiful morning for a hike. Damon Reeves materialized beside them, his athletic build barely showing signs of exertion despite the steep trail. His wife Natalia, a former model turned venture capitalist, stood beside him, her keen eyes assessing Sophia. Indeed, Vincent replied politely, handing Sophia a water bottle. The casual domesticity of the gesture wasn't lost on their observers. How long have you two been together? Natalia asked, her Russian accent giving the question a melodic quality that didn't disguise its probing nature. 3 years, Sophia answered smoothly. Though we've known each other longer. Work romance? Damon pressed, his smile sharp. Those can be complicated. Vincent's arm slipped around Sophia's waist. The best things usually are. Before Damon could respond, the guide announced they would break into pairs for a trust exercise. Each couple would take turns navigating a portion of the trail blindfolded, guided only by their partner's voice. Partners in business and life must trust implicitly, the guide explained, distributing blindfolds. Today we practice listening and being heard. When it was their turn, Vincent hesitated before placing the blindfold over his eyes. Sophia had never seen him surrender control so completely, even in this small way. Don't worry, she murmured, taking his hands. I won't let you fall. Guiding Vincent through the wooded trail, Sophia found herself hyper-aware of every aspect of him. The tension in his shoulders, the careful way he placed each foot at her direction, the complete trust he placed in her words. For a man who micromanaged every aspect of his company, this vulnerability was remarkable. Step right to avoid the route, she instructed softly. Good. Now there's a slight incline. Vincent followed her voice flawlessly. When they completed their section, he removed the blindfold, blinking in the dappled sunlight. For a moment he simply looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. Thank you, he said quietly, and Sophia understood he meant for more than just the guidance. The Fujimotos clapped appreciatively. Excellent communication, Hideki commented. A sign of a strong partnership. When roles reversed and Sophia donned the blindfold, the world narrowed to darkness, and Vincent's deep voice. His directions were precise, his tone reassuring as he guided her over uneven terrain. His hand remained steady at her elbow, a warm presence anchoring her in the darkness. 3 steps forward, then stop, Vincent directed. There's a small stream, crossing. I won't let you slip. As promised, his grip tightened protectively as she navigated the slippery rocks. When she stumbled slightly, his arm encircled her waist, steadying her against his chest. The contact lasted only seconds, but Sophia felt her pulse quicken traitorously. Almost there, he murmured close to her ear, his breath warm against her skin. When she removed the blindfold, the world seemed unnaturally bright, and Vincent was watching her with an intensity that made her flush. The hike concluded at a scenic waterfall, where a catered lunch awaited. As they settled on a blanket beside the Fujimotos, Sophia was acutely conscious of how naturally she and Vincent had fallen into couple behaviors. The casual touches, the shared glances, the silent communication. It frightened her how easily, The pretense had become comfortable. Sophia was telling me you two are waiting until spring for your ceremony, Emiko said as they unpacked their lunch. A cherry blossom wedding would be lovely. Actually, Vincent replied, his gaze meeting Sophia's. We haven't settled on specifics yet. I've been pushing for something intimate, just close friends and family. The most sensible approach. Hideki nodded approvingly. Marriage is between two people, not for spectacle. That's what I keep telling him, Sophia improvised, settling into their fictional dynamic. Though I suspect he'd marry me in a courthouse tomorrow if he could get away with it. Vincent's smile held a strange sadness. I would, he said simply, and something in his tone made Sophia's chest tighten. The afternoon brought team-building exercises, trust falls, problem-solving challenges, and communication games. In each activity, Sophia was struck by how seamlessly she and Vincent worked together, anticipating each other's thoughts and movements with an ease born of their years working side by side. During a break, Sophia excused herself to take a business call that couldn't wait. Finding a quiet spot overlooking the lake, she handled a minor crisis at the office, falling easily back into her executive assistant role. When she finished, she turned to find Vincent watching her from a distance, his expression thoughtful. Problem solved? He asked as she approached. Jenkins needed approval on the Henderson contract revisions, she explained. Nothing that couldn't wait, but I thought it best to maintain normalcy at the office. Vincent nodded, then said unexpectedly, You would make an excellent operations director. Sophia blinked in surprise. That's quite a leap from executive assistant. Not really. You've been doing half the job already. Vincent's gaze was direct. You should apply when Diane retires next month. I didn't know you were aware of my career aspirations, Sophia said carefully. There's a lot I noticed, Sophia. His voice softened. More than you might think. The moment stretched between them, laden with unspoken implications. Then Damon's voice carried across the clearing, breaking the spell. Warner, the tech moguls are being challenged to a canoe race. Surely you won't back down? Vincent sighed, his professional mask sliding back into place. Duty calls. That evening, the summit hosted a formal dinner and dancing under the stars. Sophia wore a midnight blue gown that she'd panic purchased the day before, the silk material catching the light as she moved. When she emerged from the bathroom, Vincent stood frozen, his bow tie half done. You look, he began, then seemed to recalibrate. That color suits you. Thank you, Sophia replied, crossing to help with his tie. It was a strangely domestic moment, standing close enough to catch the subtle scent of his cologne as her fingers worked methodically. There, she said, smoothing his lapels. Perfect. Vincent caught her hand before she could step away. Sophia, I want to thank you for this weekend. I know it's far beyond your job description. Consider it an investment in Horizon's future, she replied lightly, though the weight of his gaze made her words feel insufficient. At dinner, they were seated with the Fujimotos and two other couples. The conversation flowed easily, with Sophia artfully navigating questions about their relationship while steering topics toward business when appropriate. Vincent's hand occasionally found hers beneath the table, no longer just for show but seemingly out of a desire for connection. After dinner, as music filled the air and couples took to the dance floor, Vincent led Sophia among them. His hand at her waist was sure, his movement surprisingly graceful as they swayed to the music. I didn't know you could dance, Sophia murmured, conscious of his proximity. My mother insisted on lessons, Vincent replied. She said no son of hers would embarrass a woman on a dance floor. She sounds formidable. She was. A shadow crossed his features. She would have liked you. The simple statement felt monumental somehow. As they continued to dance, Sophia realized they had moved closer, her cheek nearly resting against his shoulder. The pretense was becoming dangerously convincing even to herself. Vincent, she said softly. When this weekend ends. He drew back slightly to meet her gaze, his expression serious. Yes? Before she could continue, Hideki appeared beside them, smiling broadly. May I interrupt for a moment? I have excellent news. Vincent's arm remained around Sophia's waist as they stepped away from the dance floor. My board has reviewed your proposal, Hideki continued. We are prepared to move forward with the partnership, pending final contract review. Your technology aligns perfectly with our Asian expansion plans. Vincent's face lit with genuine pleasure. That's wonderful news, Hideki. I can have legal send the finalized contracts by next week. Excellent. And you must both visit us in Tokyo for the signing. Hideki beamed. Emiko has already insisted Sophia join us. She's quite taken with your fiancé. As Hideki departed to rejoin his wife, Vincent turned to Sophia, his expression a mix of triumph and something more complex. We did it, he said quietly. Congratulations, Sophia replied, genuine happiness for him mingling with a strange emptiness at the thought that their charade had served its purpose. Vincent's hand reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, the gesture intimate enough to make her breath catch. We should celebrate. Later, as they walked along the moonlit path back to their cabin, Vincent's phone rang. He answered, his expression quickly shifting to concern. I need to take this, he apologized. A system issue at the office. I'll meet you back at the room. Alone in their suite, Sophia slipped off her heels and moved to the window, watching the moonlight on the distant mountains. Their pretense had accomplished what Vincent needed. The partnership was secured. Yet something had shifted between them, something undefined and potentially dangerous to the careful professional boundaries she'd maintained for 5 years. When Vincent returned an hour later, his expression was troubled. He loosened his tie, with distracted movements. Everything all right? Sophia asked. Just a security protocol breach, nothing critical. He poured himself a drink from the bar. Sophia, about what you were going to say earlier. A knock at the door interrupted them. Vincent opened it to find a smiling attendant holding a bottle of champagne. Compliments of Mr. Reeves, the attendant explained. He said to congratulate you on your engagement and the Fujimoto deal. After the attendant left, Vincent's expression darkened. Damon's playing games. He's fishing for information. He's suspicious, Sophia agreed, crossing her arms. The question is, how far will he go to expose us? Vincent set down his glass. It doesn't matter. We've secured the partnership. One more day, and we can return to normal. Normal. The word hung between them, suddenly hollow. What was normal now? Could they simply return to boss and assistant after this weekend of intimate proximity, of shared glances and held hands and almost conversations? As Vincent disappeared into the bathroom, Sophia twisted the platinum band on her finger. She should feel relieved that their charade was nearly complete. Instead, she felt only a growing dread at the thought of removing the ring, and with it, this glimpse of a different life, a different relationship with the man she'd worked alongside for 5 years. The line between pretense and reality had never felt so dangerously thin. Truth unveiled. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows as Sophia packed her suitcase, carefully folding the evening gown she'd worn the night before. The final day of the summit would be brief, a closing breakfast followed by departure. By afternoon they would be back in Seattle, back to their normal roles. Vincent emerged from the bathroom, already dressed in a crisp button-down and slacks, his hair still damp from the shower. They had moved around each other with practiced efficiency all morning, neither mentioning their almost conversation from the night before. The Fujimotos want to meet for coffee before breakfast, Vincent said, checking his watch. Hideki mentioned some specific technical questions about integration timelines. Sophia nodded, snapping her suitcase closed. I'll finish here and join you. Vincent hesitated at the door. You should know. The operations director position we discussed yesterday. I've already recommended you to the board. Sophia looked up, in surprise. Without telling me? I was going to discuss it after this weekend, Vincent explained. Your performance here only confirmed what I already knew. You're ready for more responsibility. Before Sophia could respond, Vincent's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Diane, I need to take this. He stepped into the hallway, leaving Sophia to process his revelation. A promotion would change everything. Her daily responsibilities, her salary, her working relationship with Vincent. It was what she'd been working toward, yet the timing felt strangely bittersweet. 10 minutes later, Sophia made her way to the lodge's garden terrace where couples were gathered for morning coffee. She spotted Vincent deep in conversation with Hideki near the stone fireplace, their expressions serious. As she approached, Vincent looked up, relief washing over his features. "There you are," he said, reaching for her hand with a naturalness that still surprised her. Hideki was just explaining their implementation timeline. The morning progressed smoothly, with technical discussions interspersed with personal conversation. Emiko insisted on exchanging contact information with Sophia, making her promise to send wedding photos when the time came. Each lie felt heavier now, knowing the partnership was secured and their charade would soon end. As they gathered in the grand dining room for the closing breakfast, Sophia noticed Damon Reeves watching them from across the room, his expression calculating. Vincent seemed to notice as well, his hand finding the small of her back as they made their way to their assigned table. "Damon's been asking questions," Vincent murmured. "Just stay close." The summit director took the podium, thanking everyone for their participation and announcing plans for next year's event. As coffee was served, Sophia felt Vincent tense beside her. Following his gaze, she saw Damon approaching their table with a tablet in hand. "Warner, a moment of your time." Damon's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I have some interesting data I'd like to share." Vincent remained seated. "This isn't the time for business discussions, Damon." "Oh, but this concerns everyone." "Here." Damon glanced meaningfully around the table where the Fujimotos and two other couples were seated, especially those considering partnerships with Horizon Technologies. Sophia felt a chill of premonition. Under the table, Vincent's hand found hers squeezing gently. "You see?" Damon continued, turning his tablet to display what appeared to be an employee directory. "I was curious about your sudden engagement. Vincent Warner, notorious workaholic, suddenly appears with a fiancée no one in the industry has ever met. It seemed convenient." Hideki frowned, looking between Vincent and Damon. "What are you implying, Mr. Reeves?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." Damon turned the tablet toward the table. "Sophia Reeves isn't Vincent's fiancée. She's his executive assistant of 5 years." A heavy silence fell over the table. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face as the Fujimotos stared at them in confusion. "This is inappropriate, Damon," Vincent said, his voice dangerously quiet. "What's inappropriate is lying to potential business partners," Damon retorted. "Pretending your employee is your fiancé to secure a deal? That's not just unethical, it's potentially illegal. Sexual harassment comes to mind." Sophia found her voice. "That's absolutely not—" "Warner-san," Hideki interrupted, his expression grave. "Is this true?" Vincent looked at the older man directly. "Sophia is my executive assistant, yes, but the situation is more complicated than Damon suggests." "I think it's quite simple," Damon said, satisfaction evident in his tone. "You lied about your relationship to make yourselves more appealing to traditional business partners like the Fujimotos. I wonder what other aspects of your proposal might be embellished." Emiko looked at Sophia with hurt in her eyes. "We shared so many personal conversations?" "Please," Sophia began, but Vincent stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. "This conversation should continue privately," he said firmly. "Hideki, Emiko, would you join us on the terrace?" As they walked away from the stunned table, Sophia heard whispers spreading through the dining room. Their carefully constructed facade had crumbled in an instant, and the professional reputation she'd spent years building felt suddenly fragile. On the terrace, Vincent faced the Fujimotos with dignified composure. "I owe you both an apology. Yes, Sophia is my executive assistant, not my fiancé. The engagement was a misrepresentation." Hideki's expression hardened. "You thought we would not partner with an unmarried man." It wasn't that simple, Vincent replied. When your team mentioned the couple's retreat format, I made an assumption about your expectations. It was wrong of me. Very wrong, Emiko agreed, her disappointment evident as she looked at Sophia. Friendship built on deception is no friendship. At all. Sophia stepped forward. The deception was my fault as much as Vincent's. I agreed to this arrangement knowing it was dishonest. She removed the platinum band from her finger and held it out. But please know that while our engagement was false, our respect for you and our commitment to the partnership is genuine. Hideki stared at the ring in her palm, then shook his head. In Japan, business is built on trust. How can we trust partners who begin with such a significant lie? Our technical capabilities and integration plans are exactly as presented, Vincent insisted. The partnership makes sense for both companies regardless of my personal life. Perhaps, Hideki conceded. But now we must reconsider all aspects of this arrangement. We will need time to discuss with our board. After the Fujimotos departed, Vincent and Sophia stood in silence, the weight of their deception hanging between them. I'm sorry, Sophia finally said. This is my fault. I should have refused from the beginning. Vincent turned to her, his expression fierce. No. This was my decision, my mistake, and I'll fix it. How? Sophia asked quietly. Before Vincent could answer, his phone rang again, this time from the Seattle office. The crisis that had been brewing the night before had escalated. As he took the call, his expression grew increasingly concerned. We need to get back immediately, he said after hanging up. There's been a security breach. Sensitive data may have been compromised. The drive back to Seattle was tense, with Vincent on conference calls for most of the journey. Sophia sat beside him in the back seat, her own phone buzzing constantly, with messages from confused colleagues who had somehow heard rumors about their engagement. By the time they reached Horizon's headquarters, it was clear that news of their deception had spread beyond the summit. As they walked through the lobby, heads turned and whispers followed. Sophia kept her chin up, though her cheeks burned with humiliation. Go home, Vincent told her as they reached the executive floor. Take the rest of the day. I'll handle this. This involves my professional reputation too, Sophia countered. I'm staying. Vincent's expression softened momentarily. Sophia, don't, she interrupted. We can't have this conversation now. We have a company crisis and a partnership to salvage. The next several hours were a blur of emergency meetings, technical evaluations, and damage control. The security breach had been contained, but not before exposing internal communications, including emails discussing the engagement strategy for the Fujimoto partnership. By evening, Sophia sat alone in her office, staring at her computer screen, where industry blogs were already running stories with headlines like Horizon CEO's fake engagement scandal and Tech Deception, Warner's desperate partnership play. A knock at her door made her look up. Vincent stood in the doorway, his tie loosened, his expression haggard. The board wants to see us tomorrow morning, he said without preamble. Sophia nodded, unsurprised. And the Fujimotos? They've officially put the partnership on hold. Vincent entered her office, closing the door behind him. But that's not why I'm here. He sat in the chair across from her desk, running a hand through his disheveled hair. I just spent 3 hours on the phone with legal. They're concerned about potential harassment claims. Sophia stiffened. That's absurd. I agreed to this arrangement. Under employment pressure, Vincent pointed out. That's how it will be perceived. An employee feeling coerced to pretend to be romantically involved with her boss to further company interests. That's not what happened, Sophia insisted. Isn't it? Vincent's voice was bitter. I asked you to compromise your professional ethics because I needed something from you. How is that not coercion? Sophia leaned forward. Vincent, I'm a grown woman who made her own decision. I could have said no. Could you? He met her gaze directly. With your career advancement potentially at stake? The question hung between them, uncomfortably close to thoughts Sophia had pushed aside. The board wants us to maintain distance until this blows over, Vincent continued. They're suggesting you take a paid leave of absence. Absolutely not, Sophia said firmly. That makes it look like I did something wrong, or worse, like there was an actual inappropriate relationship that's being covered up. Vincent stood and paced to the window. This whole situation is my fault. I put you in an impossible position, and now your reputation is being dragged through the mud alongside mine. We made this decision together, Sophia reminded him. And we'll handle the consequences together. Vincent turned to face her, something vulnerable in his expression. There's something else. Something I need to say before tomorrow's board meeting changes everything. Sophia's pulse quickened. Vincent, this weekend wasn't entirely pretend for me, he said quietly. Some of it was, real. Too real. The confession hung in the air, between them. Sophia stood slowly, the desk a barrier between them. We can't have this conversation now, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Not with everything else happening. If not now, then when? Vincent asked. Tomorrow the board may separate us completely. This might be our only chance to be honest with each other. Honest? Sophia echoed. After we just spent 3 days lying to everyone around us? That's exactly why we need to be honest now, Vincent insisted. Sophia, these past 5 years, you've been more than an assistant. You've been my partner in every way except a sharp knock interrupted them as the head of legal entered without waiting for a response. Vincent, we need to prep for tomorrow's board meeting, she said urgently, then noticed Sophia. Oh, I didn't realize you were. This is exactly the kind of situation we need to avoid right now. Vincent's jaw tightened. We'll continue this discussion later, he told Sophia, his gaze lingering on her face before he followed the lawyer out. Alone again, Sophia sank back into her chair, emotions warring within her. The weekend had blurred lines she'd kept carefully defined for years. Now, with their deception exposed and their professional relationship in jeopardy, Vincent had chosen this moment to suggest his feelings might be genuine. Her phone buzzed, with a text from him. Meet me at Horizon Park 9 p.m. We need to finish our conversation before tomorrow changes everything. Sophia stared at the message, knowing that whatever she decided would irreversibly alter the course of both their lives, professionally and personally. The carefully constructed walls between executive assistant Sophia Reeves and the woman who had pretended to be Vincent Warner's fiancée were crumbling, and she wasn't sure if she should rebuild them or let them fall completely. Outside her window, the Seattle skyline glittered as dusk descended, offering no answers to the question that had haunted her since the moment Vincent had placed that platinum ring in her palm. What was real, and what was merely pretense? Rewritten rules. The evening air carried a crisp autumn chill as Sophia approached the small urban sanctuary known as Horizon Park, named not for the company, but for the perfect view it offered of the downtown skyline. She found Vincent seated, on a bench overlooking the city lights, his formal business attire exchanged for jeans and a dark sweater that made him look younger, more vulnerable. When he saw her, he stood, uncertainty written across features normally schooled to confident. Neutrality. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said simply. Sophia wrapped her coat tighter against the breeze. I almost didn't. They stood in awkward silence, 5 years of professional rapport suddenly insufficient for this moment. Sophia had changed out of her work clothes too, a deliberate choice to mark this conversation as something outside their professional relationship. The board meeting is at 8 tomorrow, Vincent finally said. I know. I scheduled it. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Of course you did. Sophia took a seat on the bench and Vincent joined her, leaving careful space between them. Below, the city glittered like fallen stars, offices and apartments illuminated in the gathering darkness. I've prepared my resignation, Vincent said, suddenly. It's the cleanest solution. Sophia turned to him in shock. That's ridiculous. Horizon is your life's work. It's just a company, Vincent replied, though the tension in his voice belied his words. The board can appoint Naomi as interim CEO. She's been ready for years. You'd throw away everything you've built because of one mistake? Vincent's gaze was steady. Not because of a mistake, because my actions put you in an impossible position and damaged your professional reputation. That's unforgivable. I'm a consenting adult who made her own choice, Sophia reminded him, frustration edging her voice. Stop trying to be noble by taking all the blame. Nobility has nothing to do with it, Vincent countered. This is about responsibility. I created a situation where the power dynamic made your consent questionable. That's the very definition of harassment. Is that really why you asked me to meet you? Sophia challenged. To tell me you're falling on your sword? Vincent looked away, his profile sharp against the city lights. No, he admitted. I wanted to finish what I started saying in your office. He turned back to her, his expression raw with honesty. This weekend revealed something I've been denying for a long time. My feelings for you go beyond professional respect or friendship. The words hung in the cool night air, finally spoken after hovering unacknowledged between them for days, perhaps longer. Vincent, Sophia began, but he held up a hand. Please let me finish. He took a deep breath. I've spent 5 years maintaining a careful distance, telling myself it was about professional boundaries, but this weekend pretending to be your partner felt more natural than I ever expected. Too natural. Sophia's heart hammered in her chest, but her analytical mind still sought clarity. How much of this is just the adrenaline of the situation? The intimacy of shared deception? That's a fair question, Vincent acknowledged. Which is why I'm not asking you for anything. Tomorrow I'll submit my resignation. You'll be free to pursue the operations director position without any hint of impropriety. In time, this scandal will fade. And us? Sophia asked quietly. Vincent's smile was sad. There is no us, Sophia. That's the point. There can't be, not with our professional history, not with the company at stake. A surprising anger flared within her. So you recognize feelings that have apparently been there for years, only to immediately decide they're impossible to act on? That's convenient. Convenient? Vincent repeated, disbelief coloring his voice. None of this is convenient, it's tearing me apart. Then fight for something, Vincent, Sophia challenged. For once in your life, fight for something beyond your company. What exactly would you have me fight for? His voice rose slightly. Our careers are in shambles. The Fujimoto deal is dead, and tomorrow the board may fire us both anyway. Sophia stood, needing movement to channel her frustration. This is exactly why you've been alone for the 5 years I've known you. When business problems arise, you work tirelessly to solve them. But personal challenges? You surrender before you've even begun. Vincent rose to face her. That's unfair. Is it? You're willing to resign from the company you built rather than face the messy, complicated reality of having feelings for someone who worked for you. Because I'm trying to protect you. Vincent's control finally slipped, emotion breaking through. Don't you understand? If I stay and fight for the company, your reputation remains tied to this scandal. If I resign, you have a chance at a clean slate. That's not your decision to make. Sophia countered, stepping closer. Stop trying to solve me like I'm a business problem. For a long moment, they stood in tense silence, the city humming below. Them, their familiar professional dynamic completely upended. Finally, Vincent spoke, his voice quiet. What do you want, Sophia? Not what's practical or professional, what do you want? The directness of the question caught her off guard. For 5 years, she had channeled her ambitions into safe professional goals, never examining the complex emotions that sometimes surfaced when Vincent worked late beside her, or when their hands accidentally touched passing documents, or when he remembered how she took her coffee without being reminded. I want, she began, then faltered, unused to putting her own desires first. I want not to lose everything I've worked for, and I want not to pretend that this weekend meant nothing. Vincent stepped closer, close enough that she could see the conflict in his eyes. Those things may be mutually exclusive. Only if we let them be, Sophia replied. She reached for his hand, a deliberate echo of their pretend intimacy that now felt startlingly real. What if there's another way forward? One where we don't sacrifice either? I'm listening, Vincent said, his fingers tightening around hers. We go to the board together, Sophia said, the plan forming as she spoke. We acknowledge the deception was wrong but emphasize it was a mutual business decision, not coercion. We accept whatever professional consequences they deem appropriate. And us? Vincent asked softly. I'll transfer to another department. Marketing needs a new director too. It's a lateral move from operations but creates clear professional separation between us. Vincent considered this. The board might insist on more distance. Then we give them time, Sophia replied. We focus on rebuilding professional trust. First, if after the dust settles we still feel... She hesitated, unused to such emotional honesty. Whatever this is, we approach it openly. No more pretending. Hope flickered in Vincent's expression. You'd be willing to wait? To see if what we felt this weekend was real? I've worked alongside you for 5 years, Sophia reminded him with a small smile. Patience is one of my professional strengths. Vincent's free hand moved to her face, a tentative touch. And if the board rejects our proposal? If they demand one or both of our resignations? Then we face that together too, Sophia said with more confidence than she felt. There are other companies, other opportunities, but this, whatever is happening between us, deserves a chance to be explored. Honestly, for a moment they stood in silence, the weight of tomorrow's uncertainties balanced against the possibility of something neither had allowed themselves to imagine until now. We should practice, Vincent said suddenly. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Practice what? Not pretending, he replied, his voice dropping lower. May I kiss you, Sophia? Not as part of any deception or role, but simply because I want to. The directness of the question made her breath catch. Yes, she answered simply. His lips met hers with gentle hesitation that quickly gave way to certainty. Unlike the performative affection of the weekend, this kiss held no artifice, just the honest connection of two people stepping beyond carefully maintained boundaries. When they parted, Sophia kept her eyes closed for a moment, absorbing the reality of what had just happened. That was definitely not pretend, she murmured. Vincent's laugh was soft, genuinely happy in a way she'd rarely heard. No, it wasn't. They sat back on the bench, closer now, her head resting against his shoulder as they looked out at the city. At Key, Horizon's headquarters gleaming in the distance. We should prepare for tomorrow, Sophia said eventually, her practical nature reasserting itself. The board will have questions we need to answer consistently. Always the strategist, Vincent observed, but his tone was affectionate. As they began discussing their approach for the morning's meeting, Sophia's phone chimed with an incoming email. She checked it automatically, then straightened in surprise. It's from Hideki Fujimoto, she said, scanning the message. He wants to meet with us before the board tomorrow. Vincent frowned. That's unexpected. Sophia continued reading, her expression shifting to disbelief. He says after reflection, he appreciates our dedication to securing the partnership, even if our methods were unorthodox. He's willing to reconsider the deal if we can demonstrate true transparency moving forward. That's remarkable, Vincent said cautiously. Perhaps there's hope for salvaging the partnership after all. There's more, Sophia continued. He, says Emiko, particularly requested my involvement in the Tokyo negotiations, as she values my insights despite the circumstances of our introduction. She looked up at Vincent in wonder. They're giving us a second chance. Second chances seem to be the theme of the evening, Vincent replied, his hand finding hers again. As the night deepened around them, they talked strategy and possibilities, professional plans intertwined with personal revelations. The lines between executive and assistant, between pretense and reality had been permanently redrawn, but in their place stood something potentially stronger, a partnership built on honesty rather than deception. Dawn found them still at the park, watching the sun rise over the city they had both helped build in their different ways. In a few hours, they would face the board together, their futures uncertain but their direction clear. "Whatever happens in there," Vincent said as they gathered themselves to leave, "I want you to know this wasn't how I planned things." Sophia smiled, feeling strangely light despite the challenges ahead. The best things usually aren't. As they walked toward Horizon's towers, no longer pretending to be anything other than two people discovering genuine connection amid professional chaos, Sophia reflected on the platinum ring she'd returned, a symbol of a relationship that had never existed. Yet something far more valuable had emerged from their weekend of deception, the truth they had finally acknowledged, not just to each other, but to themselves. The pretense was over. What remained was real, complicated, professionally, challenging, and entirely worth fighting for.